Number 10. T-Pain. I went from having $40 million in the bank to having to borrow money to get my kids Burger King. These are the shocking words from one of hip-hop's most recognizable voices, T-Pain, whose auto-tuned melodies dominated the airwaves in the 2000s, but whose bank account tells a drastically different story today. Welcome to Echoes of Confession, where we bring you the untold stories behind the fame, the fortune, and the fall. Today, we're counting down the top 10 musicians who went from being incredibly wealthy to absolutely broke. These are real stories, real people, and real financial disasters that prove money doesn't always guarantee security. Let's dive in. At number 10, we have T-Pain, born Fahim Rashad Najm in Tallahassee, Florida. In the mid to late 2000s, it was virtually impossible to turn on a radio without hearing the distinctive sound of T-Pain's auto-tuned voice. He wasn't just a rapper, he was a phenomenon, a game-changer who revolutionized the sound of modern hip-hop and R&B. His hits like Buy You a Drank, Bartender, and I'm Sprung dominated charts worldwide. T-Pain collaborated with everyone from Kanye West to Chris Brown, from Lil Wayne to Akon. He even won 2 Grammy Awards at the peak of his career, cementing his place as one of the hottest artists of his generation. At his wealthiest, T-Pain had an estimated $40 million sitting in his bank account. $40 million. That's the kind of money most people can't even comprehend. But despite his massive success and seemingly endless flow of hit records, T-Pain was not immune to making catastrophic financial decisions. In a brutally honest interview on the Breakfast Club radio show in 2019, T-Pain opened up about his financial downfall. He admitted that he went from having $40 million in the bank to being so broke that he had to borrow money just to buy his kids Burger King. Let that sink in for a moment. A man who once had millions couldn't afford fast food for his children. So what went wrong? T-Pain's financial collapse wasn't the result of one single bad decision. It was a combination of poor money management, excessive spending, and placing trust in the wrong people. Like many young artists who suddenly find themselves swimming in cash, T-Pain didn't have the financial literacy or guidance needed to protect his wealth. He spent lavishly on cars, jewelry, houses, and an entourage that constantly had their hands out. He invested in businesses that failed. He trusted managers and advisors who either mismanaged his money or outright stole from him. And perhaps most damaging of all, he continued to live like he was making $40 million a year, even when the hit records stopped coming. The music industry is fickle, and by the early 2010s, auto-tune had become oversaturated. What was once T-Pain's signature sound became something people grew tired of. New artists emerged, trends shifted, and suddenly T-Pain found himself struggling to stay relevant. The royalty checks that once poured in began to slow to a trickle. But the bills didn't stop. The lifestyle he had built required constant funding, and when that funding dried up, everything came crashing down. T-Pain has since rebounded financially, thanks in part to his appearances on reality shows like The Masked Singer, where he won the first season, as well as smart business ventures and a return to music on his own terms. But the lessons he learned from going from mega-rich to super-broke, as he calls it, have taught him the true value of money. He now speaks openly about financial literacy and encourages young artists to avoid the mistakes he made. Number 9, David Crosby. David Crosby is as synonymous with rock and roll as the Fender Stratocaster. He's a legend, a pioneer, a voice that defined a generation. Crosby first broke through as a founding member of the Byrds in the 1960s, the band that gave us timeless hits like Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, Turn, Turn. But his real superstardom came when he joined forces with Stephen Stills and Graham Nash to form Crosby, Stills, Nash, one of the most iconic supergroups in rock history. Later, Neil Young would join, creating Crosby, Stills, Nash Young, a band whose harmonies and politically charged lyrics became the soundtrack to a tumultuous era in American history. David Crosby should have been set for life. His music sold millions of copies. He toured the world. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame not once but twice, once with the Byrds and once with Crosby, Stills, Nash. But despite all of this success, Crosby ended up broke, and the reason is one that plagued many rock stars of his generation: drugs. Crosby was an avid and chronic drug user. In the 1980s, he entered a downward spiral that would nearly cost him everything, including his life. He was arrested multiple times for drug and weapons possession. He was busted for driving under the influence. He was involved in hit-and-run accidents. His addiction to cocaine, heroin, and alcohol consumed him entirely. Crosby later admitted that he spent millions upon millions of dollars feeding his drug habits. Millions that could have secured his future were instead funneled into the hands of dealers and enablers. As his addiction worsened, so did his career. Record sales declined. Concert opportunities dried up. His bandmates distanced themselves from him. By the mid-1980s, Crosby was in serious financial trouble. He filed for bankruptcy, a shocking fall from grace for someone who had once been on top of the world. But bankruptcy wasn't the end of his struggles. Crosby would battle financial instability for many, many years. Even after getting clean and attempting to rebuild his career, the damage had been done. Legal fees, medical bills, and years of mismanagement had left him in a hole that was nearly impossible to climb out of. David Crosby passed away in 2023, but his story remains a cautionary tale about the devastating cost of addiction. Number 8, TLC. TLC was not just a girl group, they were a cultural phenomenon. In the 1990s, TLC was everywhere. T-Boz, Left Eye, and Chili were the faces of a new generation of R&B blending hip-hop, soul, and pop into a sound that was entirely their own. Their hits like Creep, Waterfalls, No Scrubs, and Unpretty dominated the Billboard charts. Between 1994 and 1999, TLC landed at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 4 times. They sold over 65 million records worldwide, making them one of the best-selling girl groups of all time. They won 4 Grammy Awards. They were icons. And yet, despite all of this success, TLC filed for bankruptcy in 1995, right at the height of their fame. How does a group that's selling millions of records and topping charts end up broke? The answer, as is so often the case in the music industry, comes down to bad contracts and exploitation. TLC's recording contract with LaFace Records and their management was heavily skewed in favor of the label and management. The group was making pennies on the dollar from album sales, while the executives were raking in millions. On top of that, TLC had racked up enormous debts. They owed money for costly music videos, elaborate stage productions, medical bills, and insurance payments. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, one of the group's members, had also been involved in a highly publicized incident where she burned down the mansion of her boyfriend, NFL player Andre Rison, resulting in expensive legal fees and settlements. When TLC filed for bankruptcy, their debts were estimated at around $3.5 million. Despite being one of the biggest acts in music, they were drowning in red ink. The bankruptcy was a wake-up call, and TLC renegotiated their contracts, fought for better terms, and continued making music. Their 1999 album Fan Mail was another massive success, and they seemed to be on the road to recovery. But tragedy struck in 2002 when Lisa Left Eye Lopes was killed in a car accident in Honduras. She was only 30 years old. Her death devastated T-Boz and Chili and marked the end of TLC as fans knew it. While the surviving members have occasionally performed together and released music, the group's story remains a sobering reminder of how artists can be exploited even when they're at the top of their game. Before we continue with number 7, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Echoes of Confession. We bring you the most compelling real-life stories of fame, fortune, and everything that comes crashing down. Don't miss our next video. Number 7. Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton is one of the most successful R&B singers of all time. Her sultry voice and emotional ballads earned her 7 Grammy Awards, 9 Billboard Music Awards, and sales of over 67 million records worldwide. Braxton's career took off in the early 1990s with hits like Another Sad Love Song, Breathe Again, and You're Making Me High. Her 1996 album Secrets went 8 times platinum and solidified her status as an R&B queen. She seemed untouchable, a powerhouse vocalist with a career that showed no signs of slowing down. But behind the scenes, Toni Braxton was facing a financial nightmare. In 1998, Braxton filed for bankruptcy for the first time. The reason? A terrible recording contract. Like so many artists, Braxton had signed a deal early in her career that heavily favored her record label, LaFace Records and Arista Records. Despite selling millions of albums, Braxton was only receiving a tiny fraction of the profits. She later revealed that she made less than $2,000 in royalties from her debut album, which had sold over 10 million copies. $2,000 from 10 million albums sold. The math didn't add up, and Braxton found herself unable to sustain the lavish lifestyle that was expected of someone of her stature. She had expenses, she had a team to pay, she had appearances to maintain, but the money simply wasn't there. Bankruptcy forced her to renegotiate her contracts, and she bounced back with her 2000 album The Heat, which included the hit single He Wasn't Man Enough. The album was a commercial success, and it seemed like Braxton had turned things around. But then, in 2010, she filed for bankruptcy a second time. This time, the cause was medical. Braxton suffers from lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease that has caused her significant health problems over the years. Her illness forced her to cancel a lucrative Las Vegas residency, and the financial penalties for breaking that contract were devastating. She also owed millions in back taxes and had accumulated substantial medical debt. Once again, Toni Braxton found herself broke despite decades of success. Braxton has since recovered financially, releasing new music, appearing on reality television and speaking openly about her health struggles and financial hardships. Her story is a reminder that even the most talented and successful artists are not immune to bad contracts, health crises, and the crushing weight of debt. Number 6. Lil' Kim. Lil' Kim is a legend in hip-hop. Since being discovered by the notorious B.I.G. in the mid-1990s, she has sold more than 15 million albums worldwide and is widely regarded as one of the most influential female rappers in history. Her debut album, Hardcore, went double platinum. Her collaborations with artists like Puff Daddy, Missy Elliott, and Christina Aguilera dominated the charts. She won a Grammy. She was a fashion icon, a trailblazer, a queen. But despite all of her success, Lil' Kim made one critical mistake. She was extremely frivolous with her money. Lil' Kim spent lavishly on designer clothes, expensive jewelry, luxury cars, and extravagant parties. She lived like royalty, but she wasn't managing her finances like someone planning for the future. In 2018, Lil' Kim filed for bankruptcy, and the details were staggering. She owed close to $2 million in back taxes to the IRS. She had accumulated over $4 million in total debt. Her spending had spiraled out of control, and the royalties from her music weren't enough to cover it. The bankruptcy filing revealed just how dire her financial situation had become. But Lil' Kim's troubles didn't end there. She also faced foreclosure on her New Jersey mansion, which she had purchased for over $2 million. The bank moved to seize the property after she defaulted on her mortgage payments. It was a humiliating and very public fall for someone who had once been one of the biggest names in hip-hop. Lil' Kim has since worked to rebuild her finances, touring, releasing new music, and appearing on reality shows. But her story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of living beyond your means. Number 5. Kesha. Kesha burst onto the music scene in 2009 with her debut single Tike Toke, a party anthem that became one of the best-selling digital singles of all time. The song topped charts in 11 countries and launched Kesha into superstardom. She followed it up with hit after hit, including We Are Who We Are, Die Young, and Timber with Pitbull. Kesha had 10 top 10 singles to her name and seemed destined for a long and lucrative career. But then came the lawsuit that would decimate her bank account and nearly destroy her career. In 2014, Kesha filed a lawsuit against her producer, Dr. Luke, alleging sexual assault, emotional abuse, and manipulation. The legal battle was long, brutal, and expensive. Kesha was locked in a contract with Dr. Luke's label, and she refused to work with him, which meant she couldn't release new music. Her career stalled, her income dried up, and the legal fees kept piling up. At one point, Kesha reportedly had to accept $250,000 from Taylor Swift just to cover her legal expenses. She was broke, unable to work, and fighting a battle that seemed impossible to win. The lawsuit dragged on for years, And while Kesha eventually reached a settlement, the financial and emotional toll was immense. But Kesha didn't give up. In 2017, she released her self-funded third album, Rainbow, which debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart and was certified gold. The album was a triumphant return, a middle finger to everyone who tried to silence her. Kesha proved that even when the industry tries to break you, resilience and talent can bring you back. If you're enjoying this countdown, don't forget to subscribe to Echoes of Confession and hit that notification bell. We're only halfway through this list, and trust me, the stories get even crazier. Number 4, 50 Cent. 50 Cent, born Curtis Jackson, is one of the most successful rappers of all time. His debut album, Get Rich or Die Tryin', sold over 12 million copies worldwide. He became a cultural icon with hits like In Da Club, 21 Questions, and PIMP. But 50 Cent wasn't just a rapper, he was a businessman. He invested in everything from vitamin water, which earned him a reported $100 million when Coca-Cola bought the company, to clothing lines, film production, and even boxing promotion. At his peak, 50 Cent was worth an estimated $260 million. But in 2015, he filed for bankruptcy, shocking the world. Filed for bankruptcy, shocking the world. So how did someone worth hundreds of millions end up broke? The answer is a combination of excessive spending, bad investments, and costly lawsuits. 50 Cent was reportedly spending over $100,000 per month just on lifestyle expenses. He owned multiple mansions, including Mike Tyson's former 52-room estate in Connecticut, which cost him $72,000 per month in upkeep alone. He had a fleet of luxury cars. He traveled by private jet. He bankrolled an entourage. But the real financial blow came from lawsuits. In 2015, a jury ordered 50 Cent to pay $7 million to Lastonia Leviston, the ex-girlfriend of his rival rapper Rick Ross. 50 had posted a sex tape of Leviston online without her consent, and she sued him for invasion of privacy. The jury awarded her $5 million in damages and an additional $2 million in punitive damages. Days after the verdict, 50 Cent filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. But that wasn't his only legal problem. He was also ordered to pay $18.4 million to a former business partner over a failed headphone deal. The partner claimed 50 had stolen the design for his SMS audio headphones, and a judge agreed. 50 also sued his own lawyers, claiming they had given him bad legal advice that cost him millions. The lawsuits piled up, and suddenly 50 Cent found himself over $30 million in debt. The bankruptcy filing was strategic, allowing 50 to restructure his debts and protect some of his assets. He eventually emerged from bankruptcy in 2017, having paid off his creditors. Today, 50 Cent has rebuilt his fortune through his work as a television producer, most notably with the hit series Power and its various spin-offs. But his story remains a stark reminder that even nine-figure fortunes can disappear if you're not careful. Number 3, Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye is one of the greatest soul singers of all time. His voice, his style, his effortless cool, it all combined to create a legend. Songs like I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Let's Get It On, What's Going On, and Sexual Healing are timeless classics. Gaye was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He sold millions of records. He was Motown royalty. But despite all of his success, Marvin Gaye ended up broke, and the reason was a messy, expensive divorce. In the early 1970s, Gaye's marriage to Anna Gordy, the sister of Motown founder Berry Gordy, began to fall apart. The divorce proceedings were bitter and drawn out, lasting for years. Gaye was ordered to pay substantial alimony and child support, but he quickly fell behind on payments. By 1976, he was in such dire financial straits that he filed for bankruptcy. But the story gets even stranger. A judge, frustrated by Gaye's refusal or inability to pay, ordered him to hand over the royalties from his next album to his ex-wife. The album, titled Here My Dear, was released in 1978 and is widely considered one of the most personal and painful albums ever recorded. It's essentially Gaye airing all of his grievances about his failed marriage, pouring his heartbreak and bitterness into every track. Unfortunately, the album was a commercial disappointment, which meant Anna Gordy didn't receive nearly as much money as the court had hoped. Gaye's financial problems didn't end there. He also owed massive amounts in back taxes to the IRS, and at one point he faced the very real possibility of being sent to prison for tax evasion. To escape his creditors and legal troubles, Gaye fled to Europe, where he lived in self-imposed exile for several years. He eventually returned to the United States and released Sexual Healing in 1982, which became one of the biggest hits of his career and earned him 2 Grammy Awards. But just 2 years later, in 1984, Marvin Gaye was tragically shot and killed by his own father. He was only 44 years old. Marvin Gaye's story is a heartbreaking reminder that talent and fame don't protect you from personal demons or financial ruin. Number 2, Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill's debut solo album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, is one of the most critically acclaimed albums of all time. Released in 1998, the album won 5 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, making Hill the first hip-hop artist to ever win that honor. She sold over 20 million copies worldwide. She was on top of the world, but behind the scenes, legal and financial troubles were already brewing. A group of musicians called New Ark sued Hill, claiming that she had used their songs and production work on The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, but failed to properly credit or compensate them. The lawsuit dragged on for years and was eventually settled out of court, but Hill was forced to pay New Ark around $5 million. That lawsuit, combined with Hill's decision to step away from the spotlight and stop releasing music at the peak of her career, left her in financial trouble. And then came the IRS. In 2012, Lauryn Hill pled guilty to tax evasion. She had failed to pay taxes on approximately $1.8 million of income earned between 2005 and 2007. Hill was sentenced to 3 months in federal prison and ordered to pay back taxes and penalties. During her sentencing, Hill gave an emotional statement claiming that she had withdrawn from society to protect herself and her family from the pressures of fame. She served her time and was released in 2013. Today, Lauryn Hill continues to perform occasionally, but her once promising career never fully recovered. Her story is a tragic example of how legal battles and tax troubles can bring down even the most talented artists. Don't go anywhere, because we're about to reveal number 1. But first, make sure you're subscribed to Echoes of Confession so you never miss a story like this. Number 1, MC Hammer. The rise and fall of MC Hammer is perhaps the most infamous cautionary tale in all of music history. In the early 1990s, MC Hammer was one of the biggest stars on the planet. His 1990 album Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em sold over 18 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling hip-hop albums of all time. The album's lead single, You Can't Touch This, became a global phenomenon. Hammer was everywhere, on MTV, on the radio, in commercials, in movies. He had his own cartoon. He had a doll. He was a brand. And he was loaded. At his peak, MC Hammer's net worth was estimated at $33 million. But Hammer didn't just spend his money, he incinerated it. He purchased a 40,000 square foot mansion in Fremont, California, which he filled with ridiculous luxuries. He had a recording studio, a 17-car garage, 2 swimming pools, a baseball diamond, and even stables for his thoroughbred horses. The upkeep on the property alone was astronomical. But that wasn't all. Hammer kept a staff of 200 people on his payroll. 200. Most of them were friends, family members, and people from his community, which, to be fair, was a generous impulse, but it was also financially insane. He was essentially funding an entire small town out of his own pocket. Hammer also invested in failed business ventures, racked up enormous legal fees from lawsuits, and continued spending like there was no tomorrow. By 1996, it was all over. MC Hammer filed for bankruptcy, revealing that he was at least $10 million in debt. Some reports put the number even higher, estimating his debts at over $13 million. His mansion was foreclosed on, his cars were repossessed, his career collapsed. The man who once rapped "You Can't Touch This" became a punchline, a symbol of excess and financial irresponsibility. Hammer has since rebuilt his life, finding success as a minister, entrepreneur, and tech investor. He's spoken openly about his mistakes and has tried to educate others about financial literacy. but his story remains the ultimate example of how quickly fortune can turn to ruin. MC Hammer went from mega-stardom to bankruptcy in a matter of years, all because he treated his bank account like a bottomless pit. So there you have it, the top 10 musicians who went from wealthy to broke. These stories are real. These are real people who made real mistakes, and their falls from grace serve as powerful reminders that money, no matter how much you have, requires careful management, smart decisions, and a level of financial literacy that many artists simply don't have when they first achieve success. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to Echoes of Confession, hit that like button, drop a comment below telling us which story shocked you the most, and share this video with your friends. We'll see you in the next one.